This is a Two Front podcast.
You got a crooked smile, well that don't bother me much. You double overworking, double time, you double tough. I'll just shine it up until the sun hit like a glare. I gotta dare, get the fuck up out the chair.
Today's guest is a pioneer in restorative and cosmetic dentistry, the host of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers, and the inventor of Snap-on Smile. Dr. Marc Liechting's passion for dentistry led him to invent the Snap-on Smile appliance and also create a philosophy for dentists that he refers to as the Hamza. In this episode, Marc shares his full entrepreneurial journey, from owning and selling practices to DSOs and buying them back for a fraction of its selling price, all the way to launching Snap-on Smile and launching his podcast, Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. Marc has truly walked the walk of a dentist who's entrepreneurial to his core. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. Very excited.
We're very, very excited. So
Thank you.
You and I were originally connected on LinkedIn because my team saw that you have a super unique story. You obviously, the theme of this entire podcast is helping dentists get the fuck out of the chair, pardon my French.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become a little bit controversial for some of our listeners who say, well, I like dentistry. I don't necessarily want to get out of the chair. And my response to that is always, I see it as two ways of getting out of the chair. One, what you did exactly, which is do something outside of the chair, like build a startup. But the second half of that is be happy actually doing dentistry, which you and I were talking about right before this,
Amazing.
where it serves you instead of you being a slave to the practice. So
Correct.
I'd love to start with the second half, since most of our listeners here are practicing dentists, and you really are such a happy dentist from what I can tell watching all of your content. You were sharing that it wasn't always this way and you had to learn what it took to get here. So tell me a little bit about what is your formula for becoming a happy dentist?
Right. I think, thank you very much for having me, first of all. And I followed your work and I still, I follow your work and it's great.
Thank
And
you.
I think just adds to my belief of what a happy dentist is. When I was growing up in the field, happy dentistry was doing great work, doing great cases that you want to do, doing cosmetics or reconstructive cases. Being a pen guy, those were the great days when I could sit there and do 3-4 hours of work. And just as I was telling you and your producer, it just felt like I was doing euphoria. I love to do the work we're doing. I love to work with the people that I'm hiring, and then I'm getting paid oodles of money. It was fantastic. But the truth be told, I did not leave the chair because I grew a group. I left the chair because I had an accident and my hand got weak. And so I learned the game or the hardship of disability. And I say the game because doctors need to know their disability. So I had to make a personal decision. Do I go and take these 5 practices that are getting bought out and looking great, doing great EBITDA numbers, great high top line production, love my associates, and do I get out and let them go and be a mentor, be a clinical advisor, negotiate maybe more offices? Or do I continue to do what I think I'm stealing money for and doing dentistry, which I love? So the other thing knowing is we know our disability. If you don't take a disability before 60, you lose it at 65.
Mm.
So if you take a disability before 60, you have a chance to take it for life. It's a big difference. So I made a decision that way, and I'm happy for it because I get a chance to really mentor doctors and move. That's the process. I moved away from the chair. Now, I could have done things. I could still, but it's hard and it's weak. So I decided to give my patients the best care and my doctors the best opportunity. And that's how I really learned how to move from the chair. And sometimes it's ego more than it's anything else.
Front, we handle the whole Invisalign process for you. I'm talking 0 ClinChecks, 0 lab bills, barely any chair time. Oh, and we take on the liability too. Your patient gets a healthy bite that'll save them thousands down the road. You get to be the hero who prevented years of dental drama. It's honestly a no-brainer. Check out Two Front and start helping your patients dodge a lifetime of dental work today. Doc, so, I think there's so much you just shared, which is so great for our listeners to hear. And one thing is actually super relevant. which is last night, I'm with my family here in Houston, Texas, and my mom actually also just got weakness of her hands. She's a physician, and she is so intimidated about the process of applying for long-term disability that she says, like, "I don't even know how to go about it, so I don't think I'm gonna do it." So for any of our doctors who are listening who, they
100%.
want to feel more supported in that process, can you share a little bit about what that process was like?
Sure. And I think that deviates from anything, but I think you're right. It's so important because right after that, I met a practice that I was buying. And it was so sad. And I want to tell this to your listeners. I took the disability. I was very fortunate. I built the 5, 6 practices and they were doing very well. One of the practices I wanted to merge with another one. So I bought this other practice to merge the two. I love merging practices. It just 1 + 1 = 11. So um, I met this gentleman, no names, and he was a wonderful guy, and we were buying his practice, and I was more or less a lifesaver because what happened was about 6 months after we bought him, he sits down with me and he says, "Mark, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's."
Oh my god.
So I said, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 66." So for all those listeners and your mother, if it takes long, sit down with an agent, sit down with a physician. If the physician says that your hand is weak, listen, we're no longer Superman. I still think I'm Superman. This was a calling. It's a calling. You got to go to the next level. And what I'm saying to the listeners is, you've got something, look at your policy. The first thing I did was call my friend. And for that, I'm going to have him on. But for my friend to talk about it and then say to me, "Mark, make a decision, but don't turn 60 before you make that decision."
Mm.
And I miss dentistry. I miss chairside dentistry, but I love what we do. We educate, we move, we grow, and with Snap-on, and there's a whole nother story coming. So yeah, I think I always believe there's a higher source that has plans for us, and we have to do the right thing. And that goes back to the building of a practice, which is we're held by morals, nothing else. It's morals because we can do whatever we want behind the curtain of a mouth. So that's me.
100%. Thank you for
S-
sharing. I know that
Yeah.
probably isn't easy.
And it's not a long process. It's a process that you have to do. Doctor deems you problematic, go through PT, deem full-time problem, can't hold this, can't do that. That's it. It's an owner-ock. You must do it, and you must know it's important for your family. Not doing it, I think, is very, very selfish.
Mm,
I
mhm.
think so.
It's scary, but I think you're totally right. Like, that's the reason why these things exist, is to protect you in the long term, so
Right.
I'm really happy you share that because I think we
Yep.
forget, you're obviously the kind of person and you're like, "Alright, here's my next challenge, I'm gonna go after it, and, like, we're gonna get through it." But I think we forget that not everyone is like that, and so hearing, from someone like you who's really strong as you persevere through these things, it just
Yeah.
can give other people the courage to know that they can do it as well.
I remember years ago they used to say, they're gonna have a helicopter fly over you and see you're picking something up. It's not that. You can't perform your tasks, your job. You can live your life. I mean, if I'm taking out the garbage and helping somebody or holding the door, they got look, he held the door. They're not doing that. They ask questions, but I'm imagining people who do it for a reason. And you're right, Ingrid. It's why it's there. So we
It's
should take
incredible.
advantage. When you need it, you gotta use it.
Amazing. Well, Doc,
Thank
I
you.
want to get into something that you and I first spoke about, which I think is like the first time I've ever heard anyone say anything like this, which is okay, so you started, is it 5 or 6 practices?
It was 5.
Okay, so you built 5 extremely successful practices.
Yep.
You sold them for millions,
Yes.
and then you bought them back for $475,000. What
Thank
happened there?
I wanna clear that up. I built a very large practice in Lincoln Center, New York. So, before I went into the multiple practices, I had one
Mm,
7-chair practice in New York City. And, it all commingles if you think about it. I came out with a product called Snap-on Smile, right? And Snap-on Smile got us as a practice so many we had the the movie cameras and the reporters from Italy, from France, from Switzerland, from everywhere come to our practice to watch me put in a snap-on. It was phenomenal, and we were growing, and I built a $5 million single practice, and it
Wow.
got bought out by a very, very large DSO. They wanted the name Manhattan Dental Arts. They wanted me. They wanted a little bit of the doctors, the way it ran. And then 2 years later, for whatever reason, not everyone can figure out how to do a New York practice, because New York practices, I'm just going to say, it's nothing better or worse than any other practice, but there is an element of not judging a book by its cover. And it doesn't, it means more, in my opinion, in the big cities than it does anywhere. Like if I go to a farm and a farmer comes in, there's not many other businesses out there that he'd be dressed like a farmer. But in New York, in LA, I don't know Chicago, but I know LA and New York, they'll walk around in t-shirts, ripped jeans, and come into your office and be worth, they just sold a tech company for $4 billion. And that is the difference in New York. When you treat everybody like you're trying to scale a business, doesn't work. And you don't get lesser staff, lesser doctors. You get the best, and you charge because they can afford it. And they went from 5.2 to 1.8. So they
Oh
wanted
my
my help.
God.
They called me back after my contract was over, 2 years. 6 months after 2 years was up, they called me back and they said, "We'll bonus you." I had a check, like I saw it in a movie once. I'll be honest. I had a check written in my pocket, and they said, "We want you. We'll bonus you. We'll bring you back. You'll build the practice up." I said, "No." And they go, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to buy it back." They said, "You want to buy it back?" I said, "Yeah, I want to buy it back." And they said, "What are you thinking about?" I said, 475,000. They said, "That's crazy. When would you close?" I said, "I close right now. Here's the check. You know I'm good for it. You bought my practice 2 years ago. You know I have the money still." I said, "My birthday is in 10 days. I'd like to close the day before, and that day is my birthday present to myself." And it worked. And
What a story.
better than a movie, I walked in on that day, and I fired the first person. I just fired somebody because, to be honest, I knew she took something, or I knew something went on, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I once interviewed her. I didn't hire her. I know she had something against me, but, these are stories that go on. Not everyone had. I've been very blessed with a book of stories, because if you put yourself and you believe in yourself, then you got to do what you got to do. And I love docs that have a reason not to do something, a valid reason not to do a procedure, not to take on a treatment plan. But too many people just don't do it because they're scared, they're this or that. You know what I mean? So in life, I just feel like that was one of the times I really was tested, and I felt blessed. Again, I guess that was I felt blessed. I was able to take back. Next year, I grew it to 4 million, grew it 3.9. And then I since then bought other offices. So now I brought the other offices, and we had 5 great ones. And Guardian Dentistry Partners came calling. So it was a nice exit.
You grew your practice from how much revenue to how much in 1 year?
From there, 1.8, in 1 year, the practice grew to 3.9. And the reason we did it is 2 reasons. Number one, we got the word out that I was back, and that the doctors are now, the doctors of my choice. And that brought
Mm.
back a lot of patients that were upset that this went down, my contract. And the second thing is, it's a great lead in to this, Ingrid. It's a great, if you think about it, I came to the conclusion, not being there, but evaluating, that I wanted my general dentists, I accepted what they wanted me to accept, and that is to let them do single implants, to let them do molar endo. And even though we have specialists, they wanted to grow. And I took one doctor in particular, and I saw his talents. This goes back 10, 11 years ago. Young, extremely good-looking guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but he still works for me. I still saw him yesterday. We pounded. I have so much respect for his dentistry. He was really somebody I looked at, and another gentleman, another guy that worked for me, that were people that just wanted to do more and became proficient in that more. I wasn't sacrificing by the implants he was doing. And
Mm.
now I see him, he's just a great surgeon. And, I think it developed my thoughts of how to build a dental practice. It's not more marketing, it's the dentist.
I'm so happy that you're bringing this up.
I
We
hope
I
so.
I run an aligner business, and we partner with so many groups.
Mhm.
And one thing that, executives of these groups love to talk about is like, "Oh, organic growth, organic growth." What are those organic growth initiatives? And literally every time we meet a new group, I think, why is this practice doing well? The doctor's empowered. The doctor runs the show. And I think that's something that, people underestimate. And it sounds like you knew so well. You walked in, you brought in your doctors, and you empowered them to do what they do best. And, I think that's the fundamental issue that we're seeing in group dentistry is like, I don't know what the answer is between, what's better, single practice ownership or working for a group. What I do know is that I come from a family of physicians and they work all the time. And I think that if you had support, you'd feel less stressed and you might even make more money. But the problem with these groups is when doctors don't feel empowered. So I'm curious, Mark, how do you do that? Obviously, you're letting them do the dentistry that they want, but how do you encourage them? Leadership is obviously a huge,
Yeah.
strong suit of yours. How do you lead your doctors to stay with you?
As you ask that question, I look at the brick wall behind me. It like reminds me of my city, the city I grew up in. I think one thing you learn when you're grew up in somewhere that you have a lot of exposure to a lot of things is you become what they call street smart. Street
Mm.
smart. And street smart goes a long way. Like when a doc, I'm not sure I'm blaming the groups as much as I am, I think talent level that comes out, you could look at a doctor and know male or female, that doctor's bulb is up. That
Mhm.
doctor is a winner. And I want winners. If I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. I got percentages, I'm higher than 70%. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think that we talk about the groups not empowering. You gotta wanna be empowered. You gotta
Mm.
wanna take that root tip out. You gotta wanna section that tooth. If somebody comes to me and says, "I love oral medicine," that's great. Go be a teacher. If someone comes to me saying, "I love doing surgery," that's great because that's a doctor who will get in there, get the disease out, get the decay out, do the efficient job, and then move on. Those are the
Mm.
people that will be empowered. I always say this to the docs. You produce and you walk on water. And that's what everyone wants. If you're a person, a doctor, male or female, can walk in a room and sell an aligner case in the morning, 2 crowns, and 6 units to finish out before lunch, and then you do all that stuff again in the afternoon, and you say you want this person there and that person, every group, every doctor, every associate that's in a and says that, that's the ones we're looking for. The ones that wanna be empowered. There are a lot of
You're
people
looking
that
for the
want
winners.
the winners. And you know what? A great leader is somebody that hires people that are better than them. I never
Mhm.
put an implant in. I had specialists. I grew my practice to 5 million, but I never did a molar endo. I did, but they were definitely better off going today with rotary, today with CAT scan, today with guides, today with dental, AI. You could figure out everything and you could be a super generalist, which is what I really believe. And those are the people that have the ability to be empowered.
As I'm hearing you talk, you're talking about basically what's your formula for leadership and like kind of extracting what it actually is based on what you're saying, which is you don't have an ego where you think that you know how to do everything and telling everyone what to do. You're hiring people and then setting the vision and letting them do their best work and providing them the resources as they need
Correct.
them and
And
support.
that's right. And training. I mean, if I see somebody that says, I love extractions and I say, how's your crown and bridge? Clear aligners? Great. Then let's get that genius of yours that wants to be a surgeon. So the next time somebody comes in, I just had that case this morning. Somebody needs number 2 extracted, bone graft. But number 4 in the same quadrant has a defect in the ridge that you can see could be granulated and put either a collar plug or a bone graft, whatever your choice is. And I told the doctor that. Now, if I'm dealing with a doctor that couldn't do surgery, that referred out root tips, would they numb the quadrant, extract, graft, open the edentulous area, granulate it? But this is super general dentists that want to go from one hourly to another hourly and then say to the staff, could you put Mrs. Smith in room 2 and I'll see Mr. Jones in room 6. Those are the doctors that take their careers and become sort of like the band leaders. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to center court to take the captainship but Michael Jordan. You want to be great, you want to be Kobe, you got to be great. And I think it takes a lot of education, and this profession gives it. So that's the way I look at it.
Education, training, support, leadership. It's kind of all the things that you're saying. Mark, you're known for taking doctors from producing $300 an hour, which is pretty much the national average at this point, to $1,500 an hour. What
Right.
is it that you do to help them do that?
Yeah. I think the number one thing is definitely our doctors, our communication skills. If you're coming in
Mm.
and you want to tell a patient that you're going to make an incision, you're going to flap back the gum, it's going to bleed, and then we're going to make a hole right in there and stick a nail right in that bone. You want to do it now? I don't think so. But if you're communicative, if you say, Mary, we're going to open up the ridge, we're going to make sure it's healthy, and we're going to put the implant in. You're going to be as numb as you were when I did the crown on the other side. So don't worry. It's not anymore the pain. Once we're done, you're out. We don't touch it. Let's get that done. Let's get it behind us so we can put the crown on in 4 months. Now, Mary's going to say, sure, doctor. That's the number one way to grow. But the other way I tell doctors to grow is treatment planning. In my opinion, is the only way you could be a comprehensive. Treatment planning is the road to success, to a great life, to financial sustainability, and a practice growth. Because if we just blurt out things and not communicate for the extra 90 seconds to our patients to explain to them exactly what's going to happen, exactly, what you don't have to worry about. You'll always have it temporary, but you want to be great at clear aligners. You've got so many people like Ingrid and others talking about orthodontics. It is huge. Clear aligners. Doctors, if you do clear aligners, root canal therapy, crown and bridge, extractions and grafts and implants, you'll treatment plan like everything is available. I don't want to take that tooth out. I'd rather root canal it. If you're not doing root canals, you're just going to say, I want to take that tooth out and do an implant because I love implants. But if you're somebody who does it all, then you're offering what I find to be the best treatment. And I find doctors that offer that are just, and can communicate that and demonstrate proficiency. I mean, the doctors that I talked about that doctor's been with me for 11 years and he is producing 12 to 1400 an hour. He's not the highest in our group,
Wow.
but 1200 to 1400 an hour on 4 days a week, everybody. And then there are doctors that are doing 1500, 2200. Yes, these are high fee doctors, but you need to sell. You need to be able to communicate. Selling is not just, hey, I'll give you 2 for 1. That's not the way it should go, but I'm not going to go on because I know that's in your thoughts. But
Well, I'm curious
yeah,
because I think that was actually one of my biggest learnings when I got out and I was practicing in New York City is I became the specialist. I became, I did all the things that I thought I needed to do to become a successful orthodontist. And then suddenly I started hearing, I'll think about it. And at that point, I was like, what do you mean you'll think about it? We've got the service for you right here. And I consider myself an extrovert, a people person, but I wasn't closing. And so I'm wondering, what do you teach your doctors to figure out how to close?
hmm empathy. Empathy. We don't close because there are things that are little noise going on in the rooms. when we speak to our doctors, our job is when we speak to our patients, our job as clinicians is to explain one, in my opinion, I break it down for every doctor that comes in. You have this sequence. It's a sequence of 4. That's all you need to do. 1, tell the patient exactly what's going on in their mouth and tell them what they need to do. 2, and that's the clue, and that's the key to make us great, is without scaring them, without making them sick, explain to them what will happen if they don't do it. Meaning, if I don't take that tooth out, my bone is gonna get infected. And if you're going away this summer, right when you want to board, that's when it's gonna happen. Or mid-flight when the pressure cabin changes. Or if you don't do the root canal, you see that little bubble, that gray little hole at the base of the tooth? That's gonna grow and it's gonna cause pain. And then we're gonna need to take it out. I don't want to lose the tooth, doctor. No, you won't lose the tooth, Mary. But we need to do the root canal. Number 3 is we don't need to hear all the great accolades of every dentist that did a crown on a patient. Our job is to explain to the patient how easy it is on number 3. Number 3 is,
Mm.
you remember that filling I did last year on the tooth on the upper left? No. Well, that's right. I got you numb the same way I'm going to get you numb on the upper right to do the crown. It's no more. It's that easy. Great, doc. Thank you. Even if you have to take out 20 teeth, we're going to make sure you don't feel a thing. And that's the only way we're going to sell dentistry. There's no way if somebody goes, hey, what's up? How are you, man? Everything great? Your mouth's a wreck. It's done. I mean, wow. Got to take out 11 teeth. Gonna bleed, gonna hurt. I just think people are too cavalier. That's
Mm.
when we're doctors. I think when we get to the mouth, we're doctors, but we're a little mechanical. We're a little, robotic is better than not robotic when we're doing procedures. But when we discuss, then the last thing, the 4th rung, is the most important. For all of us that think we could talk the buzzard off a crap wagon, we have to get up and let our treatment coordinators run the money.
Mm.
Deal with the show. Nobody should be talking money that puts their hands in a mouth. And that
So let me
leaves-
ask you,
Go ahead.
what if the patient says, Dr. Liechtung, how much is it? What do
Oh,
you say?
Ingrid, that is way above my pay grade. Let me go get Mendy. Let me go get Mendy, and she'll discuss all the monies, and I'll be right here. But if someone
Mm.
says ballpark, I say Yankee Stadium. I do very much as I could possibly do to talk about money after they hear the money from others. And it's very important for our practices to make sure that we don't have a treatment coordinator that walks in and goes, wow, man, your mouth's jacked. You know what I mean? This 45,000. Wow. Okay. Anyway, how do you want to take care of that? That is something that we have to make sure, because we doctors are treatment planning money cases. If you're a super generalist, you're doing implants and veneers and crown. You're treatment planning $15,000, $20,000 like that. We got to be prepared that is, Mary, my name is Mendy. The doctor gave me a treatment plan. It's going to be $22,000. Let me say this. The doctor is incredible. Our way of selling starts on the phone, through the front desk, through the hygiene, through the assistants, through the doctor, probably in that order, because we are not alone in this process. And if we think we're alone, we're not doing it right. We need our whole machine to work. That's
I've
how
never
you
done
sell.
this. I literally am taking notes during this podcast.
Thank you.
This is
That's great.
gold.
Thank
This
you.
is gold.
But
It's
it's true,
it's the hardest thing.
when we leave the room, us kings, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, and queens that think we do, we don't. We don't cure we don't cure cancer. We're not saving lives. We're making people look prettier and healthier. But we have to make sure that we don't talk money. But when we leave the operatory and there's that 5-minute spread between our treatment coordinator and someone else walking in, what a great idea for an assistant to say to your assistant, to say to your patient by just bracing them on the wrist or the arm and say, Mary, you're in great hands.
Mm.
And if you don't believe that, assistants don't work there. Don't. Because the most important person we have to impress, I say this to every doctor that comes aboard, is our teams. If we're not impressing them, we stink. We absolutely suck. If we think we can't find 32 teeth, gums, and bone, enough dentistry to keep you busy, you suck. Learn. Don't be afraid. Our treatment planning and older dentists need to watch because COVID has affected the treatment planning ability. So I think a lot of dental students are relying on a lot of continuing education and mentorship. Mentorship has never been so profound as since COVID. And that's because I think the American Dental Association wants us older guys, or not older guys, us seasoned, experienced 30-year-old
Yes.
veterans, to mentor people. And I think it's a great opportunity. And more people that come in for jobs want mentorship. And I think it's great to open it up and let people learn that you could be great and give the hard things. Give the roots that look like this to the endodontists. The 3 roots in a molar that look like that, I mean, it's a crown with no lab fee. Get good at it. And vendors will teach you every aspect of this for almost no charge.
Mark, as we're wrapping up, you're giving us such good tidbits to share
Thank
with
you.
our audience and honestly for me to share with our team as well, because
Thank you.
I think, we have treatment coordinators who we close patients for our practices too. I think one fundamental question that I'm always thinking about is what is the better solution? You've been on both sides. Do you think it's better for doctors to be independent business owners, independent entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs that are part of a group and sell to a practice?
Yeah.
Sell to a group.
Yeah. I think unfortunately or fortunately, our socioeconomic personally is gonna be a factor. If I come out owing $400,000 of loans, I don't think a bank is gonna easily give me $750,000 to purchase my first business and put me in debt almost $1,000,000 too. Those people latch on to the best group you can find at the best percentage. Do not my little hint is something I will not do, but I'll give you a hint. Make sure I ask the question, what's the percentage of collections in that practice? Very, very few, if any, associates. I've never said that before, but you learn so much in my field. With me, I'm on both sides every second, and literally, there's a lot going on. Great things. I'm very lucky, but I will say this: that dentists that are on interviews, you guys that are the ones I just described, are light bulbs are on, and these are leaders, and these are tremendous assets. Think of yourself as that young stud or studette that's going to sit there and say, I'll take collections, but what is the collections percentage? It's 82%. Oh, then I'm not taking collection because it's not fair that I have to keep 18% of my pay not paid and wait for it. So if it's 98% or 100%, I would look at that and say, why not? Be part of it. And afterwards, just make sure that everything you were promised is being delivered. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a go-getter, once you're in a group, you lose, no matter what it is, you lose your identity to some extent. You can't make those
Mm.
decisions. You can't put that poster up. You can't take that course because maybe we're getting somebody to do sleep. We don't need you to take sleep. Okay, but I want to. But you'll take it on your own then. So you lose that identity. My thinking is this. For those of you that can, go, I hate to say it, but yeah, I think I would be a business owner. I think there's some direct financial benefits. There's write-offs. There's things that you can do. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty right on public space, but it's always better to be a small business owner than it is to be an employee. But you got to remember, there's a lot of things in dentistry, a lot, and then what type of insurances and this and that. Learn now. But if you ask me which is best, I think if you can do it, I would never give up the years. And even now, as being a business owner, making those decisions and meeting people and hiring people and watching them grow, it's a phenomenal feeling. If you're 35 and thinking about this, you'll have 52 53, you start thinking about selling your business. Get out at 54, 55, done at 65, 60, start lecturing, write, vote, do whatever you want. But I think selling to a group right now as a young doctor could be, and if you don't have those financial constraints, it could be a little bit of an easier way out.
Mm.
That's the way
I'm
I
so
think.
happy you said that because, you've obviously been on both sides and you had
Yeah,
such great experience there and
yeah.
you're partner with a great group that's got a great
Great group.
reputation. And so it's really good to hear because, I never know. Like, and just to ask it one other way. So you're basically recommending if you can to sell it, at 55 to 60. Would you recommend keeping it till you're 80, or do you think it's worth selling and getting that exit?
I think we're so blessed as a field, as a profession, to have the sharks lurking. People always say, those DSOs, but think about it. The education, they brought all and let's talk about KPIs. Who heard of KPIs before Heartland or groups like Guardian? Who ever heard that? Who ever heard of production per hour? I never thought of it. Last few years, I lived by it. I mean, who had ever heard of ROI as far as deep marketing concern? The groups have given us so much, and they give us an exit. But planning your exit is tough. I've been negotiating with so many people for the last couple of years, and their multiples went from 8, 9 to 4, 5. So you lose. I got a great multiple. You lost because you played for the extra dollar. Now it's going to come. It's going to stabilize. You've got to decide. If I love taking whatever I want, writing whatever I want, making the decisions, that's my genius. Stay in it. You'll always have that exit. And always remember, do the right thing because they are looking for unbelievable details. And it's great. And if anyone has a question, I've been through it many times and I've been through it every day. But I do believe that if you're in today's world, if you're thinking about, if you're in your mid 40s, if you're in your late 40s and you got 2 offices and you love it, what can I get? I would start feeling and learning the process. Do I do enough of this? Is my marketing enough? Is my rent too high? Start looking at your numbers. Don't just go decide on Thursday and put this for sale sign up on Monday. To get your best numbers, you got to clean house. You got to look at your payroll and you got to look at everything and it only make you better. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, and I'm so happy that you're bringing this up, for when people should be thinking about this in their 40s, in their early 50s. I know
Absolutely.
one thing that I worry about, my dad has a neurology practice. He's in his late 60s and he's just starting to think about this. And we're supporting him with, figuring out what it looks like. And we're learning that there's so much more he's got to
Exactly.
do to make the exit worth it. So I
Shoot.
love that you're giving this advice to start young. Like we know you're busy seeing patients all day, you're exhausted, but, like, you have to make that time to really understand the business side of things.
Absolutely. I mean, I walk to doctors and I say, "So, Dr. Smith, I like your practice, the location, we need some work. How many new patients did you get last month?" Mildred would know. I said, "That's great. Is Mildred here?" "No, she goes home early on Tuesdays." I go, "Okay. How much did you spend last month on marketing?" Mildred has that too. I mean, that is what you're taking from your pocket, not to give to your family or to your wife or to you, and you're
Mhm.
giving it to marketing, and you don't know how much it is. And you could be
Yep.
getting 6 patients spending $8,000 with an ROI of 1,500 a patient. That's bad. So I think it's time today that everybody should say, with everything going on, HRs, this, that, everything, I would love to even more so button up our houses. And if you're thinking about selling, there is a magic number in the PE world, in the private equity world. And let's face it, 60 seems to be that number. So base your life on that number. They say in the business world that I've read some articles about in books, but they say that the best earning years for us professionals between the years of 39, 55. That's what I read.
Mm.
Because the first 10 years, us professionals, maybe not guys that were on Wall Street when they were 24, but us people that went to graduate school and take 10 years till we optimize. 5 years, when I was on when Howard Ferran came on, we were talking, we said for 5 years, you gotta get your craft great. Now you're 35, 36, and you are going to own the world. But at 50, 52, start thinking about your exit and start getting your home in order, and it'll only make you a little better. And get the doctors that you think can take it to the hilt, that can really help take the burden off, because it will lighten your load with the time a group wants you to stay. If you have great associates, they're going to ask you for 2 years. If you have a revolving door, they're going to ask you for 5 years. So the
Mm.
whole thing it's an entwined thought process, and it takes thinking, but it takes going through it, and going through it like I did. I sold a group of 4, I sold a group of 5, and I sold 1. I also I'm not a seller, but I do sell. And then I sold Snap-on. So I know what the PE minds want. They want good sellers, doctors. They don't want guys who are nickel and diming every single thing. They don't want us to talk disrespectful like we have something that they haven't seen before. And they want doctors that care about the legacy of the practice after they sell it. So these are all, I think, valuable points. I
I
don't
mean,
think you would,
beyond.
yeah, you wouldn't know this stuff, you know, EBITDA. What's EBITDA? EBITDA is so tough, but it's how we're judged. And you could get that from your accountants. And then the percentages of where you want your business to be should start taking fold. One quick question, I'll let you go, because I could, but I remember buying a practice, another practice, and a lot. And I walked in, I said, your front desk manager, one person, makes 25% of your top line revenue. Let's say that again. I said to the doctor, your one receptionist makes one quarter of your top line whole practice. Something I should know. Is there a relationship? Is there a friendship? And he goes, no. Every year she wanted a raise. I gave it to her. Now, that means a girl, $1 million practice, she was making 250,000. That's sick. Sick.
Oh my
Because he was
God.
bullied. He didn't want to lose her. Why not? You save 175,000. You'll save 170. You'll save your mortgage. So I just wanted to say that doctors need to take hold of their lives, and maybe the groups have taught us what we have to look for and how we gear ourselves towards it. And I think those of us that have gravitated to the knowledge are very, what's the word? Thankful. We really are very thankful that it opened our eyes up to be better business owners.
Knowledge is
And
power, and groups give
knowledge
you
is power.
knowledge.
It does.
Facts.
It does. Groups give you knowledge. Power is with numbers, and they grew it, and now they have the power. They showed us how you can lower your buy for dental supplies. Lower, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to keep, really looking at that, because you're the business. And if you want to
Facts.
send little Johnny to the best camps in the world, you better watch your numbers. That's it.
Mark, this has been so helpful. I
Thank
literally
you,
have
Ingrid.
taken so many notes. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for coming on to our show.
I loved it.
I think it's you have such a wide variety of experience, and I think that's so incredible for doctors to hear, because if you only have one side of things, it's really easy to think that your side is right. But you have lots of experience.
It
Practice
is true.
ownership, group participation, startup participation, and exits, the whole way across.
Yes,
So I really
it is true.
appreciate you sharing your
Dentistry has
knowledge.
been phenomenal. I really think, I mean, I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm saying, if you find your genius, if you just look at it, look at the people online that have restarted companies and now go and keep doing it because they love it. Look at the Ingrids of the world. It's unbelievable. I mean, and why the best looking people in orthodontics, I don't know. That's how I leave it. The best looking people are moving teeth. I don't know. Dentists, we should learn something about that.
Mark, where can
Anyway,
people find you?
they can find me at Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. And it's my podcast. I'd love for you to visit and get all the information there. It's a source of knowledge for young and older dentists. So look me up, and mliechtung at Gmail, always accepting anybody that has any suggestions and thoughts. But you're right. I've been on both sides of the aisle, I've been in boardrooms, I've been in operatories all my career. And one thing I say about myself is people say, well, you've done so many. You know what? I've done different things all in the same field. And I'm most grateful for that because, I'm not a restaurant owner and I'm not a car wash dealer. And I didn't want to get into investments with things that, dentistry is what I know and dentistry is really what I can figure out. And I really think we are lucky that maybe we are leaving it a better profession than when we took it, but who knows?
And the more you know, the more opportunity you see, and the more
Absolutely.
problems you can solve.
And I
Mark,
hope the
thank you so
more
much.
and I hope the more people realize that we know and they utilize that. But you give it. Ingrid, kudos to you. You're doing a great job. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for having
much,
me.
Mark.
I appreciate it.